I got a free apartment. I worked there for a year, and I'm just, it was like incredible. I like people are like, and again, I'm go from beach, and then this season's winter, and I'm opening a restaurant. I lost 15 pounds, almost froze to death, almost like it was as close to. I don't even know how. I wouldn't say death. That may be a slight exaggeration. Like I didn't, but I was at the point where I was starting to be concerned about my well-being. And I don't have a return ticket either. So the restaurant's not going to tell me, and I could have ejected, but I was so determined to just stay in this hole and freeze and do what I was doing. And this was the thing, and I just needed to. Like I don't know why. It's just like you hear those stories and you're like, why did you do that? You're not getting paid. You're like, you can't. You have no life. You're not like. I'm not on the like. I don't have a computer. I don't like internet in Naples was none. Pretty much. It was just kind of starting. So that's where it became like. You look back on it, you're like, what? But that's that mental game. That's where I felt like, okay, I'm in it now. Like I'm a cook now. Like I felt like at that time after that sacrifice, and I didn't think I was like a good cook or anything, but I just thought if I can make a run at this, right. I'm going to go the restaurant side versus like the resort side. Well, no, we're all about hospitality, but that different direction that is like your degree is in a hotel and restaurant, right? And so you're like. You get trained on hotel, you get trained on restaurant. And I'm still thinking, but at that time I was just in it, and I was like, man, I really got to look at this further. And so I did my time there, and one day they came up and they were like, they hand me a plane ticket, and they're like, you're leaving tomorrow. And I was like, thank God.
And now you have the strength. Now
yes, send me back to Bend. I would rather work in a snowboard
I was like,
shop.
I'm going back to Colorado. Immediately, I was like, I can't wait to get out of here.
But now you have like the strength and stuff to deal with the bullshit and the ups and downs that this industry carries with it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. So you came back from Italy with this vast amount of knowledge.
Yeah.
We'll say, and some bullshit. You know how the industry works, maybe in a foreign country, and. Now we're talking to you as the chef and owner or proprietor of a second restaurant. When did it click? Like, how did it click? Like, was it just one day you're like, fuck it, I got this?
Well, like, I mean, it's still leading up to that where, when I left Italy, and the girl that I was dating, who's now my wife, was like working in LA, and she's like, you got to come to LA, and I'm like, look, I like you. We were good friends, and I was like, I like you, but I don't know. I don't need to go to, I don't know if I'm going to LA. I'm going back to Colorado. And I was kind of determined and set on that. And so, I was going to Asia. I have a sister who lives in Asia. So I have a layover in LA. She shops my resume around like she does. And so I go to LA not knowing anything about food really, because if you're in the like French fine dining, New York, whatever scene out there, like all these chefs' names, right? Danielle and Jean-Georges and all this stuff. Like, I didn't know any of that. I've been in cooking in Italy. You saute garlic. We were doing a lot of cool, like, there was some French bases and stuff, but there, like, it was nothing to the world of food. I don't know the world of food at this time. I just know that I'm cooking. I'm getting further into it. And so I go out, and the first place I go to is Spago. And you may not know it. I don't know what your base of food, whatever knowledge is. It's really not important. Half the shit I'm saying right now is not that important, but I'm telling you.
I know what you're talking about. Spago,
but I go to Spago, and I don't have shoes or anything, and I stopped and bought a $5 pair of nursing shoes, and it was for a sous chef position of this new restaurant they were opening, Cut. And I didn't know what any of that was at the time. I barely knew what Spago was at all. And I walk in, and I didn't have a knife, so I had to borrow one of her friend's knives, and I walked into Spago with nursing shoes that were $5 and a rolled up knife and a towel with a rubber band around it.
Solid.
And people look up at me, and they're like, what is wrong? Yes, basically.
Like, I'll fucking cut you. I just left from Italy.
Yeah. And I was like, what did I just walk into? There's like 100 chefs, and everybody's just yelling, and but in control, and the guy's like, and I'm going for like a leadership position. I'm like, I've been here enough that, and so a chef walks up to me, and these are all like, big guys that I didn't know at the time who was anybody. I didn't know what the brigade system. So the brigade system's like so I'm in Spago. I don't know what a brigade system is. I'm going for a leadership position, and the guy's like, cook an oblique cut, and I'm like, what's oblique? I was like, I had no idea. And the main chef walks by, and he's like, I've never seen those shoes in khaki before. And just like makes fun of my shoes. I'm like, dude,
this is not going as well as I thought this was going to go.
And and so he shows.
I'm wasting my 4 hours in L.A. at this dickhead's restaurant.
Exactly. I'm on a layover too. This is the worst part about it. Like, I'm sitting here in Spago. I was so uncomfortable and scared of this. And he shows me the cut, and I cut it, and I'm like, okay, now I'm settling in, and he just comes over and throws all my shit in the trash. It's just the type of story in kitchen and whatever. It's just the best kind of. Of that.
It's the fuck you kind of sense that they had.
Yeah.
Like they were like, wrong.
I walked out of there and I was like, these guys are never going to call me back. They're like, hey, yeah, call us when you get back from Asia or whatever. And but I did meet another chef there, Quinn Hatfield, and later that eventually I went to Asia for a month, but then came back and got offered a position to open a restaurant at Hatfield's. And what I did get from that little tiny experience was like, I don't know how to cook. And I knew that the second, because I've been in Italy doing all this training, all this stuff. I've been cooking with this other family. I've been doing all this stuff as much as possible, touching food every day. Don't really know the world of food, but the second I knew one thing at that point is I had no clue of how to cook or do any of that. Like I didn't know. It just pushed me down.
But you knew like flavor and stuff.
But I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't know what any of that world was like, but I got a taste of it, and I was like, all right. And plus, I was so over Italy, like that whole thing. It was really good for my mind, but I was like, I don't want to cook Italian food at all. I didn't go to culinary school. If I'm going to be a cook, I need to learn some technique. And when I met Quinn, he was like a skateboarder and like whatever, and he was going to go for a Michelin star with this like new restaurant. He was hiring like 3 cooks. And I found myself walking in, and it's the same story over and over again. I walk in, and he's like, what position? And I was like, well, everything's coming from the farmer's market. I don't know how to, and my station has like 9 purees and whatever. And I go in, and I'm like, I want to be the vegetable cook. I didn't want to go for the highest or the lowest or whatever. I just wanted the one, and I picked. It happened to be the hardest station. I was like, and so but it was like, I needed to learn how to cook. So after all of that, I was like, finally, this guy is going to teach me how to cook, and it had massive impact. That's where like the technique part of what I was doing started.
So how long were you in LA?
About 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you came back to the great state. And we were very, on this podcast, Transplant the Native, Stone Appetit. We really shit on California a lot because, as our native Sammy B says, and our friend Fat Guy in Denver, he's a native as well.
Yeah.
Fuck those West Coast people. They also hate Texas.
Except for LA. LA is the only place I can get by with it. Oh, really?
I like San Diego.
See, I like spent some time in San Francisco now and a little bit in Northern. Some time in I can only, like, I tell people, like, I can go to LA to breathe, and they're like, what is false? I like, you live in the mountains and that, and I'm like, yeah, I go there to breathe because I need that
shift gear
city, and the melting pot, and I think it's the best food city, one of the best in the world right now, and so I like to stay connected to that world as much as possible. But yeah, the rest of them, forget about it. Like, I don't have an opinion.
Fuck the rest of them. But I agree with you. And speaking of, like LA is a great food city, and you see things like Chicago, New York, or other ones that are in the United States. I feel cities like, and we kind of harped on this pre-conversation, Oklahoma, but like in Austin, Texas, and Denver, they're starting to become those kind of foodier cities for, like, as we kind of grow as a city, we've become a slightly more foodie centric city. And
everywhere.
And Boulder was one of those places, even before Denver, I feel like, 15 years ago, there was more dankness. In Boulder, like restaurants, maybe a little bit more, almost like an LA vibe or style, a little bit more
for sure.
Then Denver was.
People are like, why didn't you go back to Fort Collins? And I was like, well, I had to go to Boulder because like restaurants like Frasca and Bobby and that whole, he paved the way. And I was like, people, if I try to do something weird in some weird location, I've been just line cooking in LA. people would understand it more in Boulder.
Yeah.
Boulder was more food educated, wine educated. There was, and the level of education, and it's nothing against Fort Collins, because I think Fort Collins is like one of the best cities in the country. Like I
love that place.
Yeah, it's so much
energy. It's a little bit more blue than white collar, though, in regards to, like, you were saying earlier, like Dank Brewery, or delicious breweries, juxtaposed, Stuckey and his crew. He's you got Master Psalms up in Boulder that are like on not every corner, but there's a fair amount of them. Like, it's a little bit more L.A., so to speak.
Yeah.
Whereas Fort Collins is maybe more Colorado.
Yeah, and I wish we would adopt more of the L.A. vibe in Boulder right now. We're trying to help with that, but like Boulder, it's become a little bit stagnant, but in Denver just like, keeps blowing up and just keeps moving forward. And there's exciting stuff happening in Boulder, but it's not, it's not everything it's cracked up to be.
So after you came back from L.A., is this when you decided to open Basta, or did you work for somebody in Boulder first? Or?
No, I was floating around. I came back in 2010, so that was like bad economy. Everything went, like, I had a plan, I had a space, and I got back here and it evaporated. So it wasn't, there just wasn't money, there wasn't investors, there wasn't anything. So
except for marijuana, it just becomes
and I just moved out
here.
Christmas, if you needed a line cook, he was your boy.
Exactly.
He was up at working with Kimball at the kitchen. But let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk a little bit about your restaurant's Basta, how you came on the scene. Like you said, relatively unknown, coming out of Los Angeles.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People like, I've never been. So if you count my little bit of line cooking I did at that restaurant for Collins, I'm like, they're like, so where were you a chef in Colorado? I'm like, I was a dishwasher. And the restaurant that I was working with, Antonio, God bless him, but he's like, he wants me to like put it out there. And they taught me so much about like the foundation of starting as a dishwasher. But outside of that, like, I wasn't really a cook anywhere here.
Like you said, there's two different routes that you could take.
So I had to I landed in this terrible location in Boulder, like the worst location. It's still the worst location.
It is a weird location.
No, it's like I don't think.
Tell our listeners where it is. So for those that are curious,
so it's at 33rd and Arapahoe. It's really really good. It's our 8th year.
Despite what he says,
it's awesome. It's like, again, and I kind of thought there was a chance for two reasons. One, a lot of my friends in LA were opening in the weirdest spots in downtown. It was like, that movement was just starting to happen in LA, where people were just popping in and be like, why are you opening there? And so I thought that was giving me like, oh, I can do this. It's Boulder. I'll open it in a weird place too. And then, I don't know, I guess I was trusting the fact that, I could do enough to bring people into this spot. And I was completely wrong about everything. Isn't
it underneath like an apartment building or some kind of
like
condo?
So it's 33rd and Arapahoe. It's a Peloton apartment complex. The building was supposed to get built. The outside got built. Half of the inside got built of the apartment complex. And then they decided not to build any of the rest of it as soon as I signed my lease. So there's like 50 people living there, and they're like, we're not going to build this out for 5 years. And I was like, well, we're done. Like, meaning we're just going to fail. For sure. So then I'm like in the same situation and trying to survive once again. These like, I don't know.
You may put yourself in one of those, not necessarily an uphill battle, but not necessarily doing yourself any favors either. Yeah. So
no, the struggle is real. Like people talk about like thin restaurant margins and stuff. Like the struggle is real. like what margins? Like negative margins are real. Like that's all. I'm like, I hope to pay my employees this week, and I hope to do this, and it was like it's the last 5 years have been like a master's degree in trying to figure out how to pivot and stay alive in this industry, But it's an awesome place, well. And we're there, and we're still updating, we're still constantly changing it. We're doing a little like bakery type pop-up space out there now. So I'm like, wait a minute, I'm taking another one. In the same apartment complex. I don't know what I'm doing, but
how they
it's free mainly, but
I remember though.
I learned the power of negotiation too.
Because I first went to Boston in like 2011, and I took a date there, and I remember like going into this apartment complex and thinking, she looked at me and she's like, "Where are we actually going?" And I was like, "Trust me."
Welcome to the
yeah.
But yeah, so, and I think we haven't given you the credit that you deserve. You know, you've won not only 5280's Best Chef, but you've also won Eater Denver, which we've talked about Eater and those other guys in the game. You've also won their Best Chef. So while you may go the humble route, we want to toot